The girl said her stomach hurt and groaned in pain, but she was too scared to go into the hospital. The doctor quickly came to check on her. The girl was taken to the hospital bed. While carefully examining her, the doctor asked about her condition.
Nadia, how far along are you?
10.
10 months?
She's saying she's 10 years old. She doesn't know what you're talking about.
To confirm whether the girl was pregnant, the doctor performed an ultrasound. After seeing the result, the doctor breathed a sigh of relief.
She's not pregnant. It's not a baby.
Looks like a mass, and there's free fluid.
Although she wasn't pregnant, there was a soccer-sized mass in her belly, causing her severe pain. The mass seemed to have ruptured. The girl's parents were unreachable and had abandoned her at the hospital entrance. The doctors were furious. They reported the case to the police and contacted child welfare authorities while preparing to remove the mass as quickly as possible, and the mass was successfully removed. All the doctors were shocked. The mass had filled the entire abdominal cavity, pushing her organs to one side, and weighed 7.8 pounds. During the surgery, the girl suffered severe liver bleeding and almost died on the operating table. Fortunately, Dr. Gray used a balloon tampon aid technique to stop the liver bleeding. The surgery was relatively successful. This 6-year-old girl fired 17 shots at her own father. Unexpectedly, she showed no fear at all. Instead, she remained remarkably calm. Her mother called it all an accident. The daughter had mistaken the gun for a toy, and that's why she pulled the trigger at her father. Initially, the doctors didn't think much of it, but the girl's subsequent words made the doctors realize something was amiss.
How come?
How come what?
How come you don't die? I shot him lots of times.
The girl's calmness and composure even made the doctors shudder involuntarily. Failing to kill her father, the girl strangely felt regretful, and the truth turned out to be just that. Scans revealed the man had a total of 25 gunshot wounds on his body. The doctors were confused. How could the girl have the courage to fire so many shots?
17. I thought this was an accidental shooting.
It seemed there was more to the shooting than meets the eye. Soon the cops also arrived, faced with everyone's questioning. The mother in her panic revealed the truth. It turned out the husband had been abusing the mother and daughter for a long time. The wife had even suffered multiple fractures from his beatings. The daughter only wanted to protect her mother, but what surprised everyone was, the woman didn't blame her husband at all. Instead, she spoke well of him, claiming sometimes he just got mad. She even forced her daughter to apologize to her father.
You don't want your daddy to die without telling him how sorry you are. Come on, let's go tell him we love him.
The girl was about to comply, but was stopped by the doctor on the spot.
Maddie, stay right here, okay? No, she will not go apologize to him. You should be apologizing to her. I understand you're a victim here, but there is no room for you to be a victim when your 6-year-old is on the line. Your 6-year-old is stronger than you. At least she did something. She stood up for the two of you, which is more than you did for her.
The abusive father indeed had a stroke of luck. Despite losing a lung and a kidney, after some intense medical intervention, he miraculously survived the 17 gunshot wounds.
Magical.
After some hesitation, the woman brought her daughter to the hospital room. Just as the doctor said for her daughter, she must gather the courage to make a change.
We're leaving. For good. We're leaving.
Bye, Daddy. Feel better.
Dr. Manning and Nurse Maggie were at a street fair. They heard the crowd begin to scream and got out of the way of an oncoming car. The car plowed into people. There were some in critical condition and others that were lucky to be able to stand up. Manning and Maggie, as medical professionals, moved to treat everyone. They had commandeered a restaurant across the street from the fair to treat patients who couldn't wait for an ambulance. Meanwhile, the hospital treated all those who were transferred. Charles and Halstead had even talked to the driver, and he wasn't remorseful in the slightest.
I'm very sorry.
Don't be. They had it coming. They're trying to deny our heritage. All this mixing. They want to eliminate us.
Us?
The white race.
The driver was a white supremacist. He had targeted the large group of people at the fair because he knew it would be full of minorities. The driver had purposely driven into that crowd and he was carrying a bomb in his vehicle. The fire department found the bomb and they had to clear the area. No one was allowed in or out until the bomb squad arrived. So Manning and Maggie were basically the only medical professionals available while the situation outside resolved itself. There was a young woman named Jada Harris who had gone to the fair with her mother to celebrate getting into Northwestern. But unfortunately, she had taken the brunt of the car and was later reported brain dead. Her mother was asked about donating Jada's organs because there were people on the donor list who had waited years for a match. At first, her mother had liked the idea. She had no problem with donating the organs until she found out she couldn't choose who they went to. Ms. Harris and her daughter were both black. She wanted Jada's organs to go to another black person. When she learned that the organs would go to whoever was on top of the list, she changed her mind because she didn't want a possible racist to benefit from her daughter's death.
Then no. I can't give permission.
A man's hand was caught in a meat grinder. The pain was excruciating. When the doctor was about to call the firefighters to dismantle the grinder, a colleague nearby objected.
We dropped a couple grand on that thing. You can't trash it.
To save his hand?
Another colleague who said he took it apart and cleaned it every night. He believed he could dismantle the machine intact. Finally, the
Let's do
doctors
it.
decided to let them try.
Set of Allen wrenches and a Phillips head screwdriver.
Make that two.
Fortunately, they didn't disappoint. Soon with the removal of the last component, the man's arm was fully exposed. However, when the doctor pulled out the arm,
Holy God.
Dr. Gray managed to treat the index finger, but she discovered with despair that the thumb was severely damaged and had no chance of recovery since the thumb accounts for 40% of hand function. The doctor felt that a prosthetic hand might be a better option at a critical moment. Gray remembered that someone had once transplanted a big toe to replace a thumb. Her suggestion inspired Dr. Torres to avoid affecting the patient's ability to walk. The best solution was to transplant the second toe. When told his hand could be saved, the man responded with unexpected relief.
What are you looking at me for? Take my toe already. Take my left it'll help.
I think the toe will be fine.
In the end, the surgery was a success. The doctor successfully transplanted the man's second toe to the position of his thumb. Dr. Young accidentally slipped and fell. However, an icicle from the roof suddenly broke, piercing directly into her abdomen. Blood gushed out instantly. Upon seeing this, Dr. Gray hurried back to the hospital for help. At that moment, a military doctor happened to pass by, and he immediately carried her into the hospital. But what made Dr. Young despair was that she felt fine herself. It seemed no any organs were injured, just asking her colleagues to pull it out. However, her colleagues insisted on doing a checkup first,
I think we should leave it in until we get the chest x-ray and the CT.
and quickly arranged for it. The interns nearby started taking photos with their phones.
You stopped. Oh, stop taking my picture. Take my picture.
Finally, the results of the examination came out as Dr. Young had expected. No organs were injured. Most of the ice inside her body had already melted. She felt helpless, but still no one dared to act recklessly at this moment. Just then, the military doctor from before walked in, glancing at the images on the wall before slowly approaching Dr. Young.
What are you doing?
Regularly check your health. If not, it may harm both yourself and others. Just now, a car lost control and crashed directly into the hospital. A man was pinned under the car, his face twisted in agony. The driver slumped over the steering wheel unconscious, while the car wheel kept spinning furiously, and the car was on the verge of collapse. Doctors and nurses rushed over, stunned by the sight before them. At that moment, the man's femoral artery had ruptured. Bleeding profusely, Nurse April crawled under the car, pressed his artery with 2 fingers, and temporarily stopped the bleeding. Others joined in to help. The car door was locked, so a doctor grabbed an oxygen tank and smashed the window. Upon initial examination, it was confirmed that the driver likely suffered a stroke while driving and passed out. The doctors carefully transferred him onto a stretcher. Meanwhile, the man under the car was still trapped. Firefighters arrived, and to reduce risks, they suggested using braces to stabilize the car before attempting to free the man's leg. An hour passed, and the man was reaching his limit. His consciousness began to fade. On another side, during surgery, doctors discovered a large tumor in the driver's heart. It had already spread into the atrium, making it impossible to identify its edges. He wouldn't survive until the next operation. The only option was a heart transplant to save him. Coincidentally, the man under the car, although eventually pulled out, had lost too much blood and was dying. As a medical professional, he had signed an organ donation agreement. Now they had to sacrifice one life to save another. How ironic. The victim ended up saving the person who hit him. The surgery was a success. The driver survived. But how would he face the victim's family?